absolute pleasure to be here today, and thank you so much, Matt, for inviting me. And to talk about one of my favourite subjects, actually, which is about building inclusive learning environments. And the theme of this talk, move on to my usual slide, I've colour coordinated it with the building intentionally. I know that's what the slides are. The theme of this talk, Reaching Through the Screen, is really about addressing the challenges of connection in a digital world and how we can make online learning not just accessible but truly supported so every learner can succeed. And just a little bit more about my background. I spent 17 years at the University of Oxford where I worked a lot in blended learning, and I led some big digital projects such as the library lists online, e-exams, got a new BLE and all that kind of stuff. But the University College for State Management is actually the UK's only fully online university. Has about 4,000 students, and it's the subject area of built environment, which is interesting for a fully online university. And where I am now at Higher Ed Partners, we partner with universities across the UK to help them scale, build capacity and capability to put their provision online. We have about 8,000 students across our university partners. We work with 11 universities at the moment. But enough about me. I would like to share something my grandmother said to me, which has always stuck with me, which is you must always be kind. Simple, right? A bit of simple advice. But this has really profoundly shaped who I am, not just personally as a personal trait, but professionally. So I think kindness, especially when you're dealing with non-traditional students, is a very strategic educational approach. Next slide. Okay, I grew up in Sheffield. Has everyone here been to Sheffield? If you haven't, you should. It's the best city in the UK, I think. But when I was growing up there, it was a city that had pronounced educational and social divides. At the same time, it was the most educated city in the UK. The NHS had moved there, had the Department of Education, had teaching hospitals, but also the lowest educated city from generations of layoffs from the steelworks and the coal industry. For me, education is really, I saw profoundly how it's a political space and how it's defined by justice and equity. My mother works in disadvantaged communities. My father pioneered online learning and set up Learn Direct. So I was always around education as a child. And these experiences became the foundation of my career and my belief that education should serve as a bridge, not a barrier. And I felt this very much when I was at Oxford and I undertook a master's there, and I was one of only 3 part-time students in the whole university. So I really felt what it was like to be a non-traditional student. So today I want to talk about some of the things that I think are most important to building inclusive learning environments. It's kindness and 2 related principles, placemaking and reach. Okay, so why is online learning different? Unfortunately, the data says it all. Online learners are 2.5 times more likely to drop out their studies than students studying on campus. Currently, we have about 240,000 undergraduates studying at UK institutions fully online, and about 120,000 postgraduates who have chosen to study fully online. Actually, the UK postgraduates, that's 25% of UK postgraduates have chosen distance learning as their online modality. And when you think about these figures of attrition, which can be as high as 40, 50, 60% for online learning, that's 200,000 learners who are not meeting their goals and are leaving their studies. Okay, sometimes those reasons are valid and justified, maybe leaving with exit awards and that's all they need, but it's still not good enough, and it's certainly not meeting the benchmarks that the OFS had set in that area. So what are the reasons that online students drop out? Well, actually, they're exactly the same reasons as on-campus students drop out, but it's just much more amplified because there's more of these students in this online space. There's a huge amount of diversity for students online. We find that across our partners in higher ed, learners are usually around the mid-30s mark, going upwards, although we are getting younger cohorts coming in now. Most of them have some kind of caring responsibility. Vast majority are in full-time employment, not even part-time employment. If you have a part-time degree, you're generally expected to do about 20 hours a week worth of study. It's a global classroom, so we've got students who are living and studying in conflict zones. We've got students who are living where they don't have as good access to the internet as they may do in parts of the UK. I know not all the UK is fully digital yet. We've got a lot of students in healthcare, so they're doing shift work, night work. And also a lot of students who are first in family going into university, so they don't have sort of like the academic background in their family or have as clear expectations as some other people might have going into online learning. There's a lot of financial hardship, and that's what attracts students to online. Often the price point is lower, or it's more flexible payment systems. We ask students to pay by the module, for example. So there's a lot of reasons that makes it really difficult for online students to stay connected to their studies. I just completed a piece of research. There was a seminal study done in about 2011 by, I'm trying to remember the name, Lee and, come to me later. But they did a huge systematic study, and they looked at all the reasons why online learners dropped out. And they came to about 70 factors that influenced students to leave their studies. I just did a systematic review looking at 2011 onwards and identified a further 20 reasons. And something that came through these reasons a lot was the sense of belonging and a sense of lack of community. So that's definitely been emerging. I think it's been emerging more post-COVID as well. I think that shift out of buildings to online, people understood what they missed about being in a physical space. So those are also reasons that we're finding that students are finding it difficult to study online. It's the isolation and disconnection. They're proving significant barriers. Now, some researchers disagree on this point. They say belonging is not as important for online students as it would be for on-campus students, and that's because online students belong in other areas. You know, they're older, they're part of work communities, they're part of communities with friends. You have kids at school, they've got friendship groups already established. They're not the type of people who want to go to the pub with the people they're studying on their courses. They're very strategic. They want to come in, get their degree, and leave again. But what they say matters more is actually mattering. Those students want to know that they matter to their institution and that they're being heard and that they're part of a learning community. And what really comes through in the student feedback we get, it's not students saying, we wish we had more contact with our peers and other students. It's we wish we had more contact with our institution and the instructors within that institution. So that is something else that we're seeing coming through. So let's talk about solutions. Scaffolding has been something that, as an instructional designer and learning designer, we've been looking at for years, and it's really important in the design of all learning, not just online learning. And it goes beyond the academic content to include building confidence and self-regulations. And traditionally, there's been 4 types of scaffolding that we always look at when we're designing learning. The first is conceptual, which is helping students get a hold of key concepts. The second is procedural. That's helping them use tools and resources effectively, such as the library systems or digital technologies. The strategic scaffolding, which is encouraging them to think about alternative approaches to solve problems. And metacognitive, which is very much about reflecting on their learning and how they can improve going forwards. However, this type of scaffolding isn't enough in the online space, in the digital space. I think the students that we have studying in this, in this online environment need more to address their challenges holistically. So let's go back to focus on kindness. Kindness is often misunderstood as a soft trait, but I see it as a strength. It's a strategic tool in education. I once had a manager in a 360 review advise me to be less kind because people wouldn't take me seriously in a leadership role. I chose to ignore that because I see it as building trust amongst my colleagues and the people I work with, and I think that's very much the same for students as well. I don't know if any of you are familiar with Jesse Stommel, who's a pedagogue. He focuses on critical digital pedagogy. Amazing collaborative blog he has on the net, so it's definitely worth going and looking at the articles on there. And he got me to think about how kindness is more of an approach rather than a value. I realised that I purposefully use kindness in my practice, not because I believe it to be the right and human thing to do, but also because it's at the heart of student-focused design and it's at the heart of building inclusive learning environments. And if we really care about education as a fundamental right, and if it should reach everybody, then kindness has to operate beyond individual practice and move into institutional approaches. So what does kindness look like as an institutional approach? Well, first of all, we need to come from a place of trust. We need to trust our students. It's really interesting how often I talk to partner universities. One of the first questions the academic staff have for me is like, well, how are we going to stop students cheating online? And like, well, how are you going to stop your students cheating on campus? You know, it's not instantly worse because it's an online space. But we need to trust our students. We need to believe that they're there to succeed and do that in an honest way rather than approach them straight away as some people who aren't going to employ academic integrity. And the way we design the curriculum, we can design in academic honesty and design out academic dishonesty. We use careful learning design. Flexibility is absolutely key for fully online learners, all those competing priorities they have in their lives. We want their education to be as flexible as possible. So that may be flexible assessment dates, being able to choose how long they take their module for. In March, we launched a degree in collaboration with City University, a suite of computer science degrees. It's an on-demand degree. So using the power of automation and AI, students can find out about the course, they can apply for the course, they can enroll on the course, and they can be decisioned and start studying within 48 hours. And then they can take however long they want to undertake each module. They do one at a time. And we were a bit worried. We thought, are we going to get lots of dormant students? Are they going to take forever? But actually what we've seen is students are going faster. So they're taking less time than we thought. Some of them have already done half their degree in half a year. And we were thinking they'd take longer as part-time students. And we've seen very, very, very low dropout rates compared to some of the other courses that we've had. Being aware of our students is really important, so understanding their characteristics, who they are, where they're from. Again, this can be built into the learning design, asking students to convey who they are with, icebreaker activities and stuff. And that also enables students to have an awareness of each other as well, which is just as important. It's a global classroom. There's great opportunities there for global citizenship. See and speak to students, greet them like you would do on a campus, use their names. It can fall into a transactional approach online. So just using students' names in discussion forums can really make them feel like they're being heard. And listen to students. So just building in lots of opportunities for feedback. Weekly, how was your learning? Happy face, sad face, meh face type questionnaire. And asking them, what they found difficult and what they enjoyed, so you can offer just-in-time support. Embedding support in the curriculum, we quite often fall into the trope of having this in an orientation module or an induction module or somewhere else on the university website, how you get mental health support, how you get an extension. Build that actually into the curriculum. So on the assessment submission page, you have that information there for them, because students don't have time to go and find it elsewhere and they can get lost in university systems. And also integrating skills within the curriculum is really important as well. Don't stick it over in a study skills space. Embed it within the curriculum that the students are studying. Okay, so the next one is placemaking. So does everyone know what placemaking is? Does anyone come from an urban background at all? Okay, so placemaking has come from the urban discipline, and it's really about making spaces into places which are places where people feel they can come together, they can belong in, and they can connect and form community. Okay, so I think we've kind of got a bit bad at making places online. We're very good at making very big monolithic IT systems. And sometimes we're not so good at making those as well. Sometimes they do fall over, as my recent experience shows that some people have tried to implement. But we're not very good at making them homely and a place where students can feel like they're resident and staff as well. Now we have tried. I know we've got colleagues here from Leeds. Are you familiar with the Boddington VLE? No. So the Boddington VLE was developed in 1997, just as I started my time as a student at the University of Leeds. It's got a library called the Boddington at Leeds, so it's named after that. And the way that this VLE was developed, it was to reflect a building. So you'd go into the VLE and you'd click to go in campus, then you'd find your building and you'd click to go in the building, and then you would click to go up the stairs, and then you would click to go to the right floor, and then you'd click to go along the corridor, and then you'd click to go in a room, then you click to go in another room, and there was a reading list. And the principle was there, the principal was there, and Oxford loved it. So they then bought this BLE off Leeds, because Oxford's all about buildings, isn't it? And it was Oxford's BLE for quite a period of time as well. So when I went there, I had to try and develop this thing. It was a good start, but it didn't really create a sense of place and belonging and well-being, because it was just a series of hyperlinks. So one of the core principles of placemaking is it's not actually the buildings that make a place, it's the spaces in between. If you think you're in sort of like a regenerated urban design, it's that bench outside the coffee shop where people come and sit and have their coffee and have a chat with their friends, or it's a bit of green space in between buildings where people go and sit and have their lunch in the summertime. And when I was working at USEM, because it was full of architects and building surveyors, we actually chose to implement building design, urban design principles into the design of our curriculum and design of the BLE, and because there's a lot of similarities. Okay, so just to say what some of these things look like before we go on to REACH. For example, we would have program pages, so they weren't just module pages and course pages. There were program pages where students could go and learn and find out about what their program leaders were thinking at any one time, or they could discuss industry opportunities, employment, the news that was happening. We had special event series whereby students were invited to come and hear a discussion between industry leaders and academic staff. We had, what else did we have? We had campaigns for things like diversity, and mental well-being was a huge one, because the construction industry has the highest rates of mental health issues of all industries in the UK. So we ran campaigns around that where students come and listen and find out about the support and things. So we did lots of stuff outside of the courses to create this sense of well-being. We also ran an asynchronous student voice panel, so students could feed into the design of their courses and enhance those. So the last area is reach. We want to reach everyone and we want to teach everyone. And this is where technology can really help us. This is where technology can be a powerful tool to extend that kindness and extend that placemaking across the information superhighway. And this is where we can use data. So part of the research I've recently done on retention is looking at what other universities are doing to support students who may be at risk of dropping out. And we're definitely seeing an increased use of data and analytics to identify at-risk students in two particular areas. The first one is predictive analytics, where we collect data on students as they enrol, and we can identify from that data which students may be more at risk of dropping out. And then there's live learning analytics, whereby we can see how students are engaging with their learning and if they're disengaging from their learning. And by combining those in real time, we can see which students are more at risk, and we can prioritise the support. Because one of the problems we have with fully online learning, you may have 800 to 1,000 students in one module, and you need to be able to tell who needs the most help, because you can't just use that blanket approach of phoning everyone, once a week to see if they're okay. And many students don't want that anyway, they just want to get on with their learning. So being able to prioritise that support is really important. And the other side of that is student voice, so important. So, but not just end of module questionnaires, having focus groups, they need to be asynchronous to be able to get that online cohort engaged, weekly evaluations, and feeding that all into a student support system that offers not just academic support, but also operational support, i.e. how you're going to, if you've got problems getting into the BLE or you've got problems paying for your module, and personal pastoral support as well. Okay, so just to conclude, at the heart of effective online learning, there's loads of design principles out there. There's loads of methodologies, ABC learning design, Ganguy's 7 theories of engagement. But actually, I think it's much more simple than that. It's about implementing a pedagogy of kindness where every student feels valued and supported. It's about the art of placemaking, weaving together those threads of community and belonging. And it's about a commitment to reach everybody and to teach everybody, and embracing the diversity and accessibility that's required by that cohort. And together, these principles, they don't just create functional online learning, they create an environment that is transformative. So let's commit to designing education in that way and get back to some of the basics of what it's all about. Thank you.